Upgrading your factory radio is, in my opinion, one of the most rewarding upgrades that you can make in a vehicle. But like most things in life, taking the time to plan properly up front will allow you to avoid mistakes and achieve better results. After all, what fit kit parts do we need? What interface module? What wire harness and adapters? And how can we know what tools we will need before we start prying dash trim out of the way? Hey everybody, I'm Mark. Welcome to Car Audio Fabrication. Here on this channel, together we learn how to master car audio and how to design, build, and install our dream car audio system. So recently, my sister picked up a used but new to her minivan for her family. And while it is great to have some extra room for her kids, her radio just simply had her bummed out. The features that come along with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, like navigation and voice to text and being able to stream audio wirelessly, those are definitely must-have features for those long trips in the vehicle. Naturally, having a brother that I'm sure she would tell you is the best brother in the world, she reached out and asked if I could help with this upgrade, and I told her, no problem. Now, a quick side note, although we will be going through the steps for her vehicle in this video, keep in mind that these steps can be used for literally any vehicle, and I will be giving you general advice along the way that will help with any install. First off, the website that you're definitely going to want to use for this process is called Crutchfield. Now, full disclosure, Crutchfield is a longtime sponsor of our YouTube channel, but that is for good reason. Their website makes this process extremely easy, as you will see. Also, I know that I can feel comfortable recommending them to you guys because I was a Crutchfield customer for about 10 years before I started this YouTube channel. Their customer service is unmatched. You can easily call them if you need help or if you have any issues, and in the past, when I have had problems with a product, they have always made it right. They also have given our community a special link that you can use on that next car audio purchase in order to save. After all, who doesn't like a little bit of savings? You guys can check that out down in the video description. So without further ado, let's hop on over to the computer and start our research. To get the process started here, we are first going to click Car Audio and Video and then go to select your vehicle. In this case, my sister's vehicle is a 2016 Dodge Grand Caravan, but I do want to remind you guys once again that this process can be used for any vehicle. Now, one of the cool things about Crutchfield is, vehicles have different trim levels that are going to impact the audio system, and they give us a couple of different options here. In this case, no, there is no subwoofer in the trunk, and also no, there are no speakers underneath the grills. Sometimes car manufacturers do have a spot that looks like it has a speaker, but it doesn't depending on the trim package. And a quick way that you can test for this is to play the audio system and put your hand over that spot and see if you notice any difference in sound. That's what I had her do, and there was no difference in sound, so there are no speakers under those grills. So now we can start to see some of the information that Crutchfield has put together. You can see these pictures that they've taken in their shop, and we can also start to get a feel for what is actually behind the radio, but also they always, of course, do a bunch of research on the speakers in the vehicle as well, so we can start to get an idea what speaker sizes and different speaker locations are throughout the vehicle. Now, as we scroll down, this is the area that we're going to be focusing on. We can see all of the different options for different head units. If we click all car stereos, that's going to encompass all of these different categories here. But if you knew that you were looking for something in particular, you can drill down with these categories. A quick side note, it is possible that you will be greeted with this message, which typically means that none of the aftermarket companies have engineered a solution yet for replacing the head unit. All is not lost though. You can still use Crutchfield's research for upgrading speakers, and sometimes you can instead choose a vehicle-specific amp harness, which gives you RCA outputs that you can use for an aftermarket amplifier. I cover this more in my Factory System Integration Challenges video here on the channel. In our case here, we are going to click all car stereos. Now, one of the awesome aspects of the Crutchfield website is you can see on the side of the screen here, there are a lot of different ways that we can narrow down our options of the head unit that we want to pick. I know that we definitely need to have wireless CarPlay. You can see that the category here is wired or wireless because all of the wireless units also allow you to plug in. I don't want wired only. I definitely want wireless. So we're going to click that. That is a must-have feature. Now, in terms of screen size, I also know that she's looking for a larger head unit. They do have a lot of head units that will just kind of fit into the factory spot on the vehicle, but there are a lot of new style head units that are more of a floating screen style where it's much larger than the head unit opening. So we're going to click that larger than 9-inch option. Now we can also limit our budget if we would like, or we can pick a brand. I'm going to go with a Kenwood head unit for this application. And if we do want to make some comparisons here, we can easily click this compare button and we can kind of get an idea for what the difference is between these different models. I'm gonna go see all details. And now we can easily compare these head units. We can see all of the different categories here on the left side, and then we can see all of the details on the right. And another cool button they have here is the hide similar option. This just makes it really easy to compare different models to make sure that you're getting the head unit that you want. One of the biggest differences that I'm noticing on this, the Kenwood DMX 1058XR, is the fact that this is a single DIN unit. So quite a bit more compact, which should make for an easier install, but it's really nice that Crutchfield has put together this picture here for us that we can take a look at more of the detail on the back side of the unit, and we can compare that to the other one as well. Forgot to mention this earlier, but another big feature that I really like about the current Kenwood lineup is the fact that you can see right there, it has a physical volume knob built in, which means we don't have to, sit there and be pushing on the screen multiple times to turn volume up and down. It does still have that rotary style knob. So ultimately, I think I'm going to go with this model here, the DMX 1058XR. You'll notice this check mark here fits in your Dodge, which we can click this and it will give us a little bit more detail on the fitment. There are some important installation notes here. When you replace the factory radio, you'll lose the factory satellite radio capability. My sister doesn't use satellite radio, so this is a non-issue. There is a spot that we can determine what vehicle features are retained and lost. We will see that shortly. Now I'm going to add this to cart. Now, of course, in order to install an aftermarket head unit, we are going to need a fit kit and different wire harnesses and different interface modules. And you can see that when we add the head unit to cart, we are automatically greeted with a package here of the different parts that we're going to need. It's on this screen here that we start to get more of a breakdown with what vehicle features will be potentially lost or retained, and you can see that what features we are able to retain varies depending on the interface modules and package that we choose. Now, a quick side note here, if you're not familiar with what an interface module is, you have to remember that these latest vehicles do have quite a bit of technology built into them, and a lot of times that technology is also built into the factory head unit. So in order to retain certain vehicle features, we need a module that will still talk to the factory vehicle's computer and allow it to send different messages and interpret those messages. And that's what we're able to do with the iDataLink Maestro RR2 interface module that is part of this package here. So if you are on a budget and that's not important to you, you could go with the lowest price package here. But again, what's nice is we can see exactly the things that we are going to lose if we go with that lowest price package. In this case here, we definitely want to make sure that we retain the use of the steering wheel controls, and this package will allow us to do that. And in case you're curious what each of these different things are, you can easily hover over them to get an explanation. Now, I don't know about you guys, but there's nothing worse than starting an install and realizing that you don't have the tools that you need. And Crutchfield has even thought of this. They recommend some different trim panel tools that we will potentially need in order to access the factory radio. They also recommend some different wiring connectors. If you don't have a soldering iron or a nice wire crimper, this is more of an entry-level solution for that, along with also recommending a wire cutter / stripper tool. These are all critical things to have on hand during your install. And most of all, the tools you'll need at home that it lists here, this is more particular to your exact install. In this case, we only need a number 2 Phillips screwdriver. That's going to be to remove some of the fasteners when we go to take out the head unit. So now that we have that package added to our cart here, I do want to dive in a little bit more to each of these installation items so you guys understand what they are. starting with the Maestro RR2 interface module. So essentially, like I explained earlier, this is kind of a brain box that allows your new aftermarket radio to talk to the factory vehicle's computer. You can see that's kind of explained here. Connect a new stereo and retain the steering wheel controls and other factory vehicle features in select vehicles. When we get all of our items, we do have to do a really simple programming process on this item. You can see that it includes a USB cable that allows us to connect to our computer and easily program it. And if you do have any questions about that part of the process, you can of course always call Crutchfield. I'll say I've done this a million times. It's super easy. Anyone can really figure it out. Now, the next installation item that is particular to our exact application is this vehicle-specific harness. This allows us to interface between the vehicle and the Maestro RR2. Just to give you guys a better idea of what that entails, here you can see the Maestro, and then this is of course the harness that we're talking about right now. These plug in on the vehicle side, and then this is going to plug into the Maestro head unit adapter, which is this right here, another installation item that Crutchfield automatically suggested for us to add to our cart. This is just to interface with our exact brand of head unit. In this case, we have a Kenwood head unit. So this is designed to be the interface between that Maestro harness and our actual head unit's plug. All of this stuff is very, very easy to do. It makes wiring a breeze. Now, depending on your vehicle, there may be some other accessories that you need to add. In this case, this harness here is for retention of the factory rear seat entertainment system. So depending on if your vehicle has that or doesn't, that's going to drive whether we get this or not. And then there's also smaller adapters like this right here. This is going to allow us to interface between the factory vehicle's antenna and our new aftermarket head unit. Finally, we need a way to physically mount the head unit into the dash of the vehicle, and that's of course going to be a unique specific part. And in this case, remember that Crutchfield automatically suggested this to us, and they automatically gave us the exact part that we need here. This is the Metra 99-6511 dash kit that interfaces for our exact vehicle. This is going to allow us to physically mount in the vehicle and adapt to that new aftermarket head unit size. So far we've covered picking a head unit, making sure that we get all of the different wire harnesses and fit kit parts that we need in order to install the head unit. But what about the knowledge aspect of it? How do we know how to take everything apart and install all of these items? Well, Crutchfield has that covered as well for qualifying vehicles with their master sheet document. Once you place your order, this is going to be delivered to you via email. And once you get it in your email, this is an example of what you're going to see. First off, for this particular vehicle, there are two different head unit styles. If we kind of scroll ahead, we can kind of look at the head unit and get an idea for what each style looks like. This is style A here, but my sister's exact vehicle happens to have this style, style B. If we take a look at the tools required chart here, you can see that style B does need that Phillips screwdriver, which we talked about before. They also recommended that we have a panel tool, and they're also recommending that we have an index card or a heavy piece of cardstock. That's so that we can put it behind the pry tool when we are prying apart part of the dash. That way we don't mar the dash or cause any damage. But depending on the different tasks that we may be looking to do, let's say that we are doing the front door speakers, you can see here we have a different set of suggested tools. This is just a really nice thing to have, again, so that you can prepare up front before you do the install. Now for my sister's vehicle, it does look like it's a pretty simple install actually, and this is another nice aspect of this. You can figure out how much time you really need to budget to do this installation. In the case of her vehicle, I really only need to pop out this trim panel, and then I just need to take out 4 bolts to remove the factory radio. They do give us a bunch of information here as well though on how we may need to cut away some of the inside of the dash for head unit clearance. That's going to depend again, of course, on the vehicle, but also the head unit that you choose. But I love that they give us installation details as well. And it's worth noting that if the head unit removal is a lot more complicated, or even if it's more complicated to access the speakers in your vehicle, that sort of thing, they cover literally all of the steps that you need to know. As an example, this is what's needed for getting out the factory radio for style A. You do have to access some of the bolts there on the A-pillars. You do need to take out the defroster trim panel. You also need to pop off this center panel that is above the head unit in the vehicle. You have to remove a little bit more trim down below the head unit. Quite a bit more steps for that style A, but I love that Crutchfield details everything as needed. And don't forget, again, the master sheet has a ton of extra information. It's not just for removing the head unit. You can see this process here details how to remove the rear speaker. If you're new to car audio installation, on this page here, they give you some more details on how to crimp or how to solder wires if needed. And they even give us a wire splicing guide so that we can determine some of the wire colors and what they are if we're doing a more advanced install. In total, this particular master sheet has 15 pages in the document. Just a ton of helpful information for doing our install. So now we can place our order and we have all the items that we need in order to complete our DIY install. If you're new here and you want to see that installation video, be sure to subscribe, and I'll also put it as a link here on screen once it's available. Now don't forget that you can save on your next car audio purchase with our show sponsor Crutchfield by using the links down in the video description. A big thanks to them along with Jerry and the rest of the Patreon membership team for making these videos possible, and thank you guys so much for tuning in and watching.